Walk with me.
When the I am turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. Then was our mouth filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then said they among the heathen, the I am have done great things for them, and the I am have done great things for us, wherefore we are glad. Turn again our captivity, O most holy Sanini Nanini Tata and Zambi, the Heya Yahweh Yahuwah. Yes, even you who inhabits all things. We ask you to turn again this thing. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. He that goeth forth in weeping, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. Psalms chapter 126. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits that have sway over the thoughts of men's hearts. And let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me and my seed forever, that we go not astray from henceforth and forevermore. Jubilees chapter 12 and verse 20. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, those of you on TikTok and YouTube. Yes, I'm T Clay 213 on TikTok and also Mr. Clay on YouTube. Yes, and we just read our devotion and our prayer. And we also thank God for those of you that have joined from the beginning, and we thank God for those of you that have been with us there in betweens and abouts, and we thank God for those of you that have just subscribed or followed, and we thank God for those of you that are about to subscribe or follow. We count those things that are not as though they are. Yes, even though we're constantly suppressed or shadow banned. We thank God for that. Eventually we're going to have something. Well, that will happen no more. But anyway, regardless, we're in the book of Jubilees, book of Jasher. I did it again. The book of Jasher, and we're in chapter 7 of the book of Jasher. Yes, we've often read where God even showed where it was in the days of Peleg. Not only the nations were divided, but also the earth itself was divided. He's not talking about people. He's talking about landmass was divided. You're talking about the United States. You're talking about the Americas. You're talking about Africa. You're talking about European. You're talking about Australia. For what reason did he do this? Well, you have to read the whole testimony. I'm not talking about there's no such thing as no New Testimony. You got to read the testimony. The testimony from every book in the Bible there is to find out why God did it. But there is one thing to show it, or one suggestion why God did this and allowed this. Not only confusion of nations, tongues of nations, but also the confusion that comes about with skin and the confusion that comes about with where you come from. Yes. See, most likely we are the Hebrews, or should I say Hebrews is a mass of people. That is just what they say is a language. But those children of Jacob is a whole nother thing hidden within all the Negroid peoples. Hidden Hebrews, as one noted content creator says. Hidden Hebrews. Yes. And let us begin. We're in verse 25 of chapter 7 of the book of Jasher. For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch. Now, these are the garments that we read in the 66 books that were combined, and also by the Europeans, but we also have the Ethiopian books that were combined. That's the Bible too. Let's call a buck a buck. just not, they just hadn't thrown nothing out. Everything that they could gather, they put it in there. That's what happened. Now, he said, for after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Yadet. And Enoch was taken up to God, and he gave them to Methuselah, his son, as you have often read. And at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them to the ark. See, Noah had books. Noah had so many things. And they were with him until he went out of the ark. Verse 27, and in their going out, Ham stole. I don't know whether this is true or not. But anyway, but it says Ham stole those garments from Noah, his father, and he took them and hid them from his brother. Now, Ham is not cursed. Ham is not cursed. These things occur. Okay, they said Ham stole them. God, the angel of presence, telling Moses that Ham stole these things. This is written by Jasher. Now, probably from the mouth of Moses, and he wrote it in a different way. Now, he took them and hid them from his brothers. In other words, he just put them in a place where they didn't know where they were. Now, these were, somebody says, well, God didn't kill no animal, he didn't shed any blood for man. Where did he get the skins from? Did he shed the blood of an animal? A sheep? A goat? What did he do? Did he take them and just delete the animal and just take his coat? Or did he create? The books did not say he created. He killed, he sacrificed an animal just for you. An innocent animal for you. Jesus is not an innocent animal. He's human. Even to say this, God doesn't deal in Molekism. In other words, human sacrifices, making your children run through the fire and all that. No, that's not God. No. That's the enemy, the spiritual enemy of every man's soul. Yes. Now, and they're going out, Ham stole these garments in verse 28. And when Ham begot his firstborn Cush, he gave him the garments in secret. And he had his favorite son, and they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. And Nimrod grew up. And when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. These garments was taken from an innocent animal, as we can suppose. An innocent animal by God's anointing, by God's hands, or however God's image is. He took this animal, took his life. His blood was on the ground that men might be clothed. That's deep. And then you ask yourself, why does God require of us animal sacrifice? And the same thing, how can God sacrifice a man? That doesn't make any sense. Let's call a buck a buck. You have entities that have had access to these things and early on. Not only just the Roman churches, but you're talking about even the earlier ones. There have been evil people that have deciphered these things, and some of them rewrote it and everything else. And it's just a mess. And this is to what end it was. It was to the vicar of what we call the Christ, that he's in the stead of God. This is how the lands, he said, all in the book of the Discoverers, written by Daniel Bornstein. He said, all the earth is mine. He told his people, if you go to a king and he's not a Christian, in other words, you do what you want. And they know it. Yes. And when Ham begot his firstborn Cush, okay, let's go to verse 30. I done got a little sidetracked, but Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments, and God gave him might. These were anointed clothes and strength. It wasn't in the clothes, it was the blessing that God had touched this. God's name was in these clothes or in the skins. And he was a mighty hunter in the earth. And he was a mighty hunter in the field, and he hunted the animals, and he built altars, and he offered upon them the animals before the I Am. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from among his brethren, and he fought the battles of his brethren against all their enemies round about. And the I Am delivered all the enemies to his brethren in the hands, and God prospered him from time to time in his battles, and he reigned upon the earth. I know he was king because he was a mighty strong man, yes. Therefore it became current in those days when a man ushered forth those that he had trained up for battle, he would say to them like God did to Nimrod. You know, that was a saying. But Nimrod was wearing stolen garments. Sometimes you can take things that's meant for good and use them for evil. Now, he wasn't all the way evil to start out with. Who was a mighty hunter in the earth? Who succeeded in the battles that prevailed against his brethren? And he delivered them from the hands of their enemies. So may God strengthen us and deliver us this day. Yes, they knew that God had blessed those. His name was in the clothes. When God put his name in something, on something, in a place, that place is blessed, anointed. Yes. And when Nimrod, in verse 34, was 40 years old, at that time there was a war between his brethren and the children of Japheth, so that they were in the power of their enemies. Verse 35, and Nimrod went forth at the time. He assembled all the sons of Cush and their families, about 460 men. And he hired also from some of his friends and acquaintances about 80 men. And he gave them their hire, and he went with them to battle. And when he was on the road, Nimrod strengthened the hearts of the people that went with him. This is the same way with what you would call the Persians. When they went against the Greek, when they went against the Babylonians, they hired some of the Greeks and some of the other surrounding people to help them fight the Romans. But yet they had another thing. The same thing as with the United States. When they, before becoming in the colonial days, they were taking those who were taken captives and put as slaves and had them to do some of the work they couldn't do or fulfill those spots that they couldn't fulfill. And he said to them, do not fear, neither be alarmed, in verse 36, for all our enemies will be delivered in our hands, and you may do with them as you please. That's bad. And all the men that went about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places. And he took some of their children as security, and they were all servants to Nimrod and his brethren. And Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. And when Nimrod had joyfully returned from the battle after having conquered his enemies, all his brethren, together with those who knew him before, assembled to make him king over them. And they placed a regal crown upon his head. The first crown king, okay. And he set over his subjects and peoples, princes, judges, and rulers, as is the custom amongst the kings. Now at this time, this is where the thing where Mizraim is he's getting ready to come into power. Because Nimrod was the first one. God did this for a reason. And he placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host. He dignified him and elevated him above all his princes. Yes, only men in the land of men elevate men according to their likes and their perspectives of that person. And while as he was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies round about, he advised with his counselors to build a city for his place, and they did so. And they found a large valley opposite to the east, and they built him a large and extensive city. And Nimrod called the name of the city that he built Shinar, for the I Am had vehemently shaken his enemies and destroyed them. And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them, and he prospered. And all his battles and kingdoms became great, very great. I mean, you know, strong black man sitting up there with fur on, or should I say sheep clothing. I would imagine it was a sheep or a goat. Yes, a sheep or a goat. And all the nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they bought him offerings, and he became their Lord and King. And they all dwelt with him in the city of Shinar, and Nimrod reigned in the earth all over all the sons of Noah, because all of them were the sons of Noah. One DNA from one man. Yes, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue and the words of the union. But Nimrod did not go in the ways of the I Am. Now, this is where he deviated here. Now, he was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood to those until those days. See, I read this because the stories and the historical accounts of what happened they are very vague when you go to the 66 books or the Septuagint. They're vague for a reason. And as you study on your own and do these things, you're going to find out, or you're going to come to that point where you're going to see there's a dead cat on the line somewhere. And he says he was more wicked than all the men. This is Nimrod that were before him from the days of the flood until those days. Now, if he's more wicked, this man did some stuff. He was swallowed up. Yes. And he made gods of wood and stone, like your Isas on the cross and your Marys and your Caucasian saints that you have. And even in some lands they have the black saints, or should I say the Negroid saints. Yeah. All idolatry. This thing God is against. And he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against the I Am, and taught all his subjects and people of the earth his wicked ways. And Madron and his son was wicked than his father. In other words, just as we pray the prayer, keep me from these evil spirits, yes, which have swayed the thoughts of men's hearts. Yes, they do. And he said in verse 48, everyone that heard of the acts of Madron, of the son of Nimrod, would say concerning him, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness. Therefore it became a proverb in the whole earth, saying, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness, which is true. Look around you in the different kingdoms and countries and the leaders of people. The people take after their government. Look at some people, their government is in debt, so the people go in debt. Then he tried to get out of debt, and the people can't get out of debt. And it was current in the words of men from that time to this. And tell of the sons of Nimrod, the prince of Nimrod's host was in those days a very, very great in the sight of the king of his subjects. And the king and princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. And Terah took a wife, and her name was Amthelo, the daughter of Conibo. The wife of Terah conceived and bare him a son in those days. And Terah was 70 years old when he begot him. Now, a man only going to live 100, maybe 120 years, or maybe 70 or 100. He was blessed to even live 70. And Terah called the name of his son that was born to him Abram, because the king had raised him in those days and dignified him above all his princes. Now, we're getting to a point here. Now, you have to realize the whole narrative is about from the beginning of time to Israel, even Jacob. I ain't talking about that fake one. I'm talking about the one that is hidden among the Negroid peoples. Yes, and all his princes that were with him in verse 8, chapter 8. I'm going to read one more and that's it. And it was in the night that Abram was born, and all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night. And with that, we're going to say peace.